watching Time Gal 25. Junko Mikan is canon, bitches!
So, Danganronpa's finally coming to Switch. This is one of those things where I feel like a lot of people in the fandom expected it to come at some point or another. Last year was the series' 10th anniversary, and while people in their minds knew that it was unlikely that we'd be getting a full-on new game, if there were any kind of new media releases for Danganronpa for the 10th anniversary, it would most likely be in the form of a Switch port. And with the ports, there isn't really that much to say so far from what we've seen. The footage shows that they are based on the anniversary port, which are mobile ports of the game with some slight new translations, being that they're being produced by Spike Chunsoft themselves and not NIS America. And I don't think there's anything that's too big with that except for the font and UI in the gameplay itself looking different. But besides that, there's not much else besides being able to see concept art and the character sprites more personally and audio clips. So that's not important. The big thing that came from this was the reveal of Danganronpa S Summer Camp, which is a standalone expanded version of the board game from V3. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about or haven't played it, there was a bonus mode in Danganronpa V3 after completing the post game, where you would select any character you wanted from the main three games, and you would go around on this giant set of board game style maps, and whenever you landed on a space, an event would happen. And that could be something like getting stats up for a character or seeing a little pixel cutscene. But most importantly was, and the big draw of it was, you could see cutscenes of all the characters from across the main three games interacting with each other at Hope's Peak. And it was all done individual novels cutscene with some new voice lines, but not like the scenes were voiced, but more the voice clips from, the normal kind of interaction scenes. And this was something that when I played it, I loved to death. And I really mean that because it was fan service, but it was a fan service thing that people kind of wanted for the longest time. Whenever you have a game series that spans multiple sets of characters and isn't just the same character growing and maturing, fans a lot of times want to see how those characters would interact and what would they do with each other? Would they work off each other? Would they bounce off each other? And this game really showed that off. It wasn't that in-depth. Like, there were scenes, it wasn't like a full game. There were a set number of scenes for each character, and I think if you kind of did a run just hoping to land on the interaction scenes, you'd probably see it all by the end of a single tour of the board. There were some differences, like on holiday events, but that was the main thing. So this new game, Danganronpa S, is an expanded version of that. Oh, another thing that it had was it would lead into another bonus mode from V3, which was a dungeon crawling RPG. And how it worked was, instead of leveling up normally in the RPG, what you would do is you would level up character stats and buy things to level up stats in the board game. It wasn't the best design, but it worked for what it was. It was a little mini distraction thing that you played as a reward post-game. It wasn't super serious. There was no story in the RPG mode. And when playing the base version of this, I had a fun time with it, but I felt like more could be done. And from looking at the footage of Danganronpa S and seeing the photos of it all, it's a lot of what I wanted and what I'm hoping for. And I think a good place to start is the fact that now Ultra Despair Girls characters are added. And that's something that I wanted to see in the original launch of this. But I think the reason it didn't happen in the V3 version of the game was because the Ultra Despair Girls portraits weren't the same as the portraits that were in the other Danganronpa games. And that must have meant it would have required time and effort to adapt it. But now they're all here. Hopefully. I have no idea. All we know is that Koromaru and Hiroko are in. And also the Warriors of Hope. So who knows who else is coming. And, that's cool to see because V3, while I don't like the gameplay that much because it's a PS Vita, it's a third-person shooter designed for the PlayStation Vita, I still like the characters and the story from that. And it was barely acknowledged in V3. It was kind of just, that's a thing that happened, and, we're not going to bring it much else up. And now seeing it get acknowledged more makes me happy. Another thing that really interests me is the fact that every character featured now seemingly has a new set of character portraits or sprites. They showed it off briefly, but the new setting for the Danganronpa S is Jabberwock Island from Danganronpa 2, so naturally it would make sense that everyone would have beach/tropical clothes. And that is something that I find super cool. I always had this idea that if Danganronpa were to do a gacha-style phone game or the like, I think the reward should have been, oh hey, you can see sprite edits of the characters that you love, You put in money to see Kyoko in the Danganronpa 0/Danganronpa Kyoko clothes. You would spend money on that. And this kind of seems to appeal to that, at least in one form, of everyone getting new swimsuits and tropical clothes, and I think they look gorgeous. And this brings up a question that I had super hoped to see in the base board game, and I think a lot of people had hoped to see, is will we see Mikuro Ikosaba as herself, no longer wearing Junko clothes and a wig. And I'm hoping that we see that in this game. We did have some screenshots of the new art, which is also something that I find really cool, is the fact that they got the series' main artist for all the CG cutscenes in the main games to make a whole bunch of new art here. But in one of the cutscenes that we were shown, we can see that Mikuro as Junko is there, and she's still in full Junko attire. And it looks like it'll most likely still be her dressed as Junko in a new swimsuit set of icons. But I have a theory. It's not true, probably, but I still have a theory. Because what made the board game also cool was the fact that characters with variants, those were still playable. Like, for example, you could play as Mikuro dressed as Junko, or just Junko Enoshima herself, or you could, if you wanted to play as Toko, you could play as her, or you could play as Genocide Jill Toko, and the cutscenes with them would play out slightly the same, but with new dialogue and edited. So I kind of have this theory that maybe if we're lucky, there will be a Mikuro as Junko set, but also a Mikuro Ikosaba set as herself. I'm wishing high, but, if they're going through all this effort to make, edits to everyone else to give them new beach bodies and clothes, I think that it wouldn't be that hard to make new art or edit the Junko sprites to give her, black hair and make her look more like Mikuro. She might be more expressive, but Danganronpa 3, the anime, showed that she was expressive in that. She wasn't just this gray slab. She wasn't just Maki, is what I'm trying to say. I hope so. Another thing that interests me is how big is this game? Because what makes this whole thing unique is that Danganronpa S isn't just the V3 board game and RPG, but with new events and a new board or whatever. This is a full-on standalone game. They've made that clear in the trailer, saying that this is its own standalone game. It's not with any of the other games. And the fact that when these games will come out, you can buy them, in this big pack, or if you just wanted a specific game, you get it separately. And while pricing and a date hasn't been revealed yet, I think what's going to tell me the size of this whole thing is going to be whether or not Danganronpa S is the same price as 1, 2, and V3. My guess is that each game is going to come out and be about $30 a piece. So if Danganronpa S comes out and it's like, oh yeah, $30, that'll at least make me hope that this thing is going to be around the size of a basic small-term RPG game. because, if you buy this and it's just, oh, it's $30, but it's still kind of just, oh, it's everything from V3, but with like one new board and like a few new events, that'd kind of be a disappointment. But if this is like, oh, hey, yeah, this is a whole on mini RPG with a whole bunches of art and hours of character interactions and the like, and it looks like possibly a story mode, that'd be interesting. That would be well worth $30. That'd be well worth buying separately. I'll probably get the full collection because it comes with new art and a whole bunch of bonus stuff and a CD, and I'll probably get that. There's a few miscellaneous things I want to talk about real quick. I think it's most likely that with Danganronpa S, we will be getting a new Masafumi Takada soundtrack, because in the Nintendo Direct trailer, it played a remix of Love is Survival that hasn't been heard in any remix albums, so it's most likely to assume that he's making a new soundtrack for this. And really, it's not a surprise. That man made a full-on remix soundtrack of new hits, completely unique, for the Pachinko Patchy slot game. And he went full effort on that, so I think the same's going to be done for this one. Another thing I'm interested in is to see is if the RPG mode is a full-on story mode. And I hope it is, because when I played the RPG mode in V3, it was very much kind of just a bland dungeon crawler. There wasn't any cutscenes, there wasn't any kind of art or anything. And I think if it had those, that would have made it more fun to play. You go in deeper and you see even more cutscenes of a story or an implied story. But in the game, it's just an intro cutscene of Monokuma's made like a dozen clones and taken over. You have to team up to stop him, and that's it. And I think here, like, there is art of Sakura, Akane, Tenko, and Kibo, and Kokichi fighting Monokuma and a bunch of his henchmen for the game. And the way it's set up looks like a story mode cutscene. And that's interesting to me. Like, I want a story of these various characters interacting and teaming up to take down this robotic teddy bear. And, maybe it's just an intro cutscene, but I still hope that there's a substantial amount of new art for this game. And that, it feels fleshed out and it's not just, oh, hey, we expanded this mode. Here's some new basic stuff. Pay $30. I think the only other thing I really hope for in this is that each character gets at least one or two special specific moves to them. Because, again, the RPG in V3 was very bare basic. You could apply stats, any attack, or any move to any character, as long as you had the points to buy it. And they'd use it. And what would matter was that, they'd have different starter stats that you could level up. So, I'd play a game and I could give Mikan a healing spell, but I could also give Junko a healing spell, or I could give them both fire spells. And I think, well, I don't want each character to have, a whole on different moveset from each, all their moves are unique. What I'm hoping for is, these are all ultimate characters. They're all unique Danganronpa characters. So maybe give them like one special / unique move to each of them that corresponds with their talent. And, that'd be cool to see. I think that would satisfy me of, I'm playing as these characters. These are my characters I'm taking on this epic trip. There isn't that much else to say. We just heard about this yesterday. We don't even have a release date yet. All we know is that it's coming to Switch. And most likely Danganronpa S itself, standalone, will be coming to all the other consoles that Danganronpa's been ported to. Because I don't see them upgrading the other games to the Anniversary Edition, because I feel like that would be kind of a somewhat waste of time or take too much space. So here's hoping that at least Danganronpa S is available to everyone after it comes out. And I'll most likely come and make a new video talking about any updates or footage, or do a review of the game when it comes out. But yeah, I think that's about it. I'm really excited for it because it's new Danganronpa content. And even if this is the only new Danganronpa thing, and it most likely is, Though I'm still personally hoping for like a fighting game or whatever. I'm still happy that this is coming out. Oh, wait. One last thing before we go. There is a chance, and it's a slight chance, but it's still a chance, that this thing could go full Danganronpa or full, ooh, surprise, we got you, there's a whole game to this. Because it's still M-rated, and while that's most likely due to characters like, Junko and Miyu and the like, there's still a chance that this could get gruesome because it has a fully adult rating. Who knows? It's probably not. But again, after stuff like Danganronpa 2's fake-out intro, you never know. Probably not, but it'd still be a nice surprise. I think that's about it. I'll let you all get to anything else you're working on. This has been TimeGal25, and no matter what time of day, afternoon, or evening you're listening to, it's a nice, cool night here. See you next time.